Hello, welcome to the Boss It podcast with Mark Edwards and Michael Humblett. This podcast is released every week and is an over-the-shoulder look of a frank and candid discussion between two experienced software executives, providing you with useful tips, techniques, and the latest concepts to help you grow your software business in the fast-paced digital age. So let's get into it. Here is Mark Edwards and Michael Humblett.
And here we go, another podcast. Michael, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mark.
Superb. Did you notice?
I'm so happy you're not calling me in the weekend.
It makes a change, doesn't it? That was last week when you fell off your chair. That
Yes,
was
well, actually, to yesterday I was on stage. A lot of people. It was an event called Digital First in Belgium.
okay.
And I was explaining the 5 lessons learned from scaling 150 scale-ups, etc. And first time ever in my life, while I was on stage, I got like a, like a blood pressure dip. So suddenly, the stage tilted. And I'm like, oh, so I'm hanging on this thing where you have your laptop and everything. And I kind of get back up. And I realize in a millisecond, I was like, damn, it's me going down here. And then I recuperated. And I lost the track of my story, so it took me a few seconds to get back in, and I got back in. Nobody really noticed. Some people that know me thought, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it's the first time ever. Normally on stage, you get this adrenaline rush kind of thing. And I
Yes.
think I went immediately to the doctor, of course.
Sure.
Girlfriend said, go to the doctor. And the doctor said, you know what? You're just trying to do way too many things at the same time, my friend. Calm down.
Yes.
So, Mark, you wanted to talk about sleep and stuff like that?
Well, so tell me, what have you been up to recently then? Have you been eating
falling
right?
off stages, falling off chairs.
Chairs? Have you been eating properly? Have you been
I've
exercising?
eating, sleeping, I sleep 7 hours a night. You know, by the way, there has been this massive study on sleep. Have you read it last week? Very interesting.
No.
So the theory was always you need to have a certain amount of sleep. So
Yes.
sleep deprivation doesn't work. But the study also showed that too much sleep, more than 8 hours, is actually equally bad.
Counterproductive.
Yeah.
I had heard that before. Yes.
Yeah.
I think you start to become lethargic.
So they tested on, I think, 44,000 people or even
Wow.
more. So and they also said stuff like, actually, it's the best that you always sleep a bit similar, meaning like in the weekend sleeping on it doesn't work from the study, of course. So interesting. I was intrigued.
Well, actually, that sparked off. I've had lots and lots of meetings this week, so lots of things floating around in my head, including a head cold, which will account for this rather nasally sound to my voice today. So apologies for that,
I thought
guys.
it was your Barry White impression.
Yeah. It will probably get even lower towards the end.
Yeah.
But
I can take one.
But you're saying about studies on 44,000 people. I was talking to somebody I've known in the industry for years, and we were talking about the power of having medical devices now that can transmit information about people, and the potential for that for studies around disease and health.
Mhm.
And it looks like I've done quite a lot in the health sector, spoken to lots and lots of technology companies in and around health, and I can see lots of the components coming into play where the reality is that we could be fairly soon wearing devices. For instance, you've had an incident there on stage, and you may be low blood pressure, it may be overwork, it may be a whole host of things. But you imagine wearing just a simple device around your wrist or maybe around your chest that's capturing all the vital statistics on an ongoing basis.
I would have loved. Actually, I went to the doctor because I thought, let's check it out. And the guy said, are you wearing an Apple Watch or something like that? Would have been great if we would have looked at it. And I'm like, no. So you just gave me the excuse to buy new technology, Mark.
Oh, you're all way, aren't you? Another gadget for you. I think they've got a new one out
Apple
as well,
Watch.
haven't they?
No Apple Watch because I think I would have a problem charging it every night, although with the phone it's the same. On the other hand, I see the guys with the watches. They get even more distracted because they're watching the watch and it trills and it vibrates, and I'm like, no. Just let's stick to an old school watch.
Well,
I'm getting old, Mark. I'm getting old.
You think of the amount of data that would be available. I think in that study you said about sleep, 44,000 people.
Yeah.
You think of the potential of being able to study people's heart rate, their blood pressure, their temperature, their movement.
The prediction of it must be really like, hey, Michael, I see you're going in overdrive. It's time to calm down.
Yes.
But then the risk, your insurance phoning you, oh, we've just doubled your fee.
Yes, that's the other side. Yeah. Well, I did some work for the UK Alzheimer's Society because of my mother with dementia. And what they were saying, one of the critical things and what they were really focusing a lot of the research on was the early detection of dementia. Because if they're able to detect somebody 20 years in advance of maybe their symptoms showing, is that they then have much longer to work with that person and various medications and treatment. And what they've found is what they believe that they can do is that they can test by looking deeply into the eyes.
Really? So it's like smelling cancer. Dogs that can smell cancer.
I've heard about that. Yes.
So we're really off the beaten track here.
There's technology. There's technology. There's data.
Yeah, true. Okay. So come on, let's go back to B2B or B2C or some real business issue.
Okay, I've got a question for you.
At least pretend you know something about it, right?
You're trying to get your own back for last week, aren't you? Because I was being disagreeable, wasn't I?
You did noting to me, so I have to get you back on that one.
Yeah. Whatever you were going to say, I was going to say I don't agree. No, it's good to disagree. It is. We need to be able to argue and see things from different perspective. And I did disagree with you, so I said.
As long as you know I'm right, I'm all fine with that.
Yeah, I do. I always know that you're right. In your own mind, you're always right.
Yeah, good. That's all I needed to know.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Somebody said to me, why is B2C software so much better designed than B2B?
It's a very good question. And something I noticed when I think about B2B is that in most cases, it's actually ugly designed, and I'm always saying you need a much better commercial design. So I think B2C from nature, because it's consumer facing, the impact of buying behavior is so massive of a nice picture of perfume, of an influencer or whatever, just naming some obvious ones. It's so clear the impact, the psychology behind that people, a lot of marketeers, a lot of designers spend a lot of time on that front. But they've never looked into real B2B. And you see the effect on interfaces in software. A lot of interfaces are just, because they're designed by engineers, they're functional, if at all, really functional, right? Look, by the way, to Slack and these kinds, suddenly it becomes really beautiful. Much nicer.
Yes.
So I do think there is a big trend from moving more nicer design, because if you just look at all the nicely designed things, most of the time they sell pretty well.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a problem in answering that question because I was trying to think, is that statement true? I think with B2C, what we may be seeing is perhaps the later generations of software, because we may be looking at new potential software to say, as a consumer myself, do I want to use this? Whereas perhaps in business, we adopt a software solution that stays with the business. And maybe if that vendor isn't updating the user interface.
Don't forget, there is a big trend. So something that you see is you work in a company, you come home, and all the tools you use at home, Facebook, Google Drive, all the stuff you use at home looks 10 times better than the software you use at work. So there is a big trend of people coming back into the office and using all these little tools, which is a big risk for a company on several levels. But I think the consumer, at home, every B2B person is at home a consumer. I think they are pushing the market to make much more beautiful things. If I just look at interface for CRM, just taking one obvious example, as time has gone by, Salesforce has a pretty nice interface. by the way. That's the biggest one. But if I
Yeah.
look at most of these serums, more and more, they all look very appealing, and you want to use them, and you want to click them, and they look really nice. Old school CRM, think Dynamics. If I take a look old school CRM, it just looks clunky. Look at old school SAP. Looks really like, what is this thing?
That's an interesting point, actually, because just as you were saying that, you're right. You come home and you start using a B2C solution. If
Yeah.
that isn't nice to use, if it isn't got a sexy user interface,
You chop it.
I chop it. If I'm part of a larger organization and there's software there that I need to use, it's much more difficult for me to chop it, as you say.
One of the things that annoyed me for like 18, 19 years was it was so hard to get sales to fill in CRM.
Oh, yes.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key causes for that is two things. One, it's just not functional and ugly, and why would you fill it in? It just doesn't work. And two,
Yeah.
of course, you have a bit of a process issue when if you ask too many things to fill in, you go nuts. The system needs to work for you. So if you look at new CRMs, they basically integrate with everything, and they will pre-fill stuff, so it becomes much easier and easier and easier. But I think the combination of a much nicer interface, more functional, the blend of that makes the new CRM so attractive, much more attractive. Mark, I had to tell you this. I was discussing with a very large consultancy, can't tell you which one. And they asked me, we're looking into sales training, Michael, can we talk about sales training? So I said, could you send me the material you currently use? So they sent me an Excel sheet, which all of their sales need to fill in. Listen to this. It had 8 tabs. Every tab had about 50 lines. Of course, it was Miller Heiman. It was one of the big, let's say, I'm going to call them old school. I'm really sorry. The Excel was really ugly. It was very solution selling. And I just looked at it and I thought, you will have so bad data because it's so many questions. One, you will not be able to answer. Two, nobody will ever really want to fill it in. You spend a day filling in this thing. And I said, yeah, but Michael, we need all this data. I said, no, you management need the data to feel secure things are going fine. But the reality is they just fill in crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it didn't really work. My sales pitch was going horribly wrong, Mark.
Yeah, we are used to really good design now a lot of the time, aren't we? Even the sort of hardware, ergonomics, and there's a lot of thought and money got into it. I mean, we use iPhones. Why do we use iPhones and not those phones that we used to have maybe 15 years ago, those flip phones and things like that? The design, it didn't feel as nice.
By the way, I advise a lot of my B2B clients, most of them. I say, just make sure it looks good, even if it's not yet fully done. If it just looks the part, if it just looks really attractive, people believe in beauty. People think beauty will save them. It's simple as that, I think.
Well, doesn't it imply quality?
Actually, it inherently implies quality. Now, you cannot make jokes about... No, let's not go there. You know what I'm thinking. But I'm just saying, no, you're right. I think beauty in a way, or really nice design, implies quality. And it can be rather sober, by the way.
When you go into, say, for instance, a Mercedes or a BMW or a Range Rover, what to you helps to convey the feeling of quality? Because after all, a car is a big part of that is about the engine. But before the engine is even turned on, what gives you the feeling that you're entering a car of quality?
For me, it's. I mean, they did a lot of studies around this. You know that. So for the theory is when you open the door, and it's the way the door sounds and feels, and then
the weight of the
door. For me,
door.
it's the smell of the leather, of course, and then it's the way the leather is being crafted and the little inlays that give you this very luxurious feeling, actually.
Well, I used to have a Jaguar, and the Jaguar, it was the wood,
You sold it?
I did, yes.
No, Mark.
It was
Seriously?
Yeah, I had.
You promised that I could drive that thing.
No, it was too fast for you, Michael. You just wouldn't have been able to handle that sort of power. No, it was a racing car on the road. It was crazy. So I had it for 18 months. But when you're inside the car, Jaguars were always, you get inside them and they have to have the bit of wood going round. They wanted to convey that. I hadn't even turned on the engine, but you get that feeling that it's quality. Must be the same as software. You open it up, even as it's opening up, you get a feeling about is this going to be? You're making judgments all the time, like you do when you meet a person. They say that you make a judgment about somebody in the first 30 seconds, and after that, you're looking for information to back up your initial assessment. Is it not the same as software?
I'm pretty sure it is. The thing is, in B2B, we have to look at decision makers that need to make a decision for a big group of people. So are they still so in? I don't know. I'm just curious. I don't know the answer, Mark.
Well, it's the decisions for a big, a B2B enterprise solution doesn't go down necessarily to. They're not going to hold a vote. They're not going to get all the users together to say, "Do you think this software looks sexy?" But it is important because you and I know there's software solutions out there that some really well-known ones. I mean, OpenText. OpenText. I heard, allegedly, I better add that word, that only 30% of the software licenses are really used because no one likes using it.
Yeah, but that's one, and two. They would always oversell you. They would push you to. I mean, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
They would also completely oversize the deal.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, eventually will hurt them massively because people are paying.
But we're not saying that OpenText do that in any way.
No.
Companies.
I'm saying companies in general.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. No, there's the joke about shelfware, isn't there? Companies that in the past they've sold software and it just sits on the shelf, not being used because the users don't like using it. So it does have some implication, doesn't it? And it may be that the B2B world is just a little bit behind the B2C. B2C is so much dependent upon, do I like this? How many times have you tried a bit of software, you've played about with it for 10 minutes, you thought this is rubbish, I don't like this, and you never look at it again?
No, true.
That's your appraisal.
Yeah. But then they put it under the name of customer experience and CX, and then it's about the onboarding. I mean, there's lots of different factors, of course, but no, I agree.
I've got another question for you because I've had lots of questions thrown at me.
So many questions.
I know. Well, I've got a head cold, so I thought I'll get you working this time because it's much easier to ask questions than it is answer.
If it's too hard, I fall. I get
that's right.
I fall from my chair.
If I hear this crash and then there's no more answers, I'm going to
like really quiet.
Yeah,
it's either two things: either the Belgium internet has stopped, or it's Michael.
You've killed over, and then I'm going to have 15 minutes of talking to myself. That's going to be difficult. I would phone for an ambulance though first, so don't worry. Now my question is pricing strategy for B2B. Please discuss.
Yes. So very good. So the major thing you need to know is every pricing needs context. That's number one, right? You can't just come in and say, this car is 200K. You need to give context. Also in B2B. So one, you need to have that context. Two, I absolutely believe in upsell mechanisms. You have to have a sliced model for the simple reason that if you just sell one product, so imagine you sell one product, everything in there. If I ask you, make me a quote of 100K, you're probably going to say, I'm going to sell you 10 times the same thing, right? Which purely from a sales strategy point of view, you will have big issues in the negotiation because you will have to go down in volume pricing, all of that. What I want to do is I would suggest to slice and dice the product into 2 or 3 tiers so that you can actually make sure that you can pre-frame. So you can say, well, the 3rd tier is more expensive, but people look at it and say, yeah, it's too expensive. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to go one level down. But in essence, you've basically pushed your price up.
What would be differentiating those tiers? Explain to me a little bit more about those
Most
tiers.
of the time it's features. Let's take an easy example. Software as a service, very simple. You see it in very small amounts. You sometimes see it in large way. For instance, tier 1 gives you a bit of functionality. Tier 2 gives you a ton more functionality. And tier 3 the very high-end corporate stuff
Right.
that has things like single sign-on and, the classic corporate features.
Yeah, we used to see it a lot with the SaaS software. It'd be bronze, silver, and gold, or standard, silver, and platinum,
Now
that
they've,
sort of thing.
they've
They
they
changed
name
that.
stuff like Galaxy, and they call
Yes.
it what.
Yeah.
So, but I still believe that pre-framing actually really, really, really works. I mean, purely from a negotiation point of view, it really works. Two, there is an aspect that a lot of companies just don't completely forget, and that's something I've learned with startup and scale-ups. They build a product, and it's pretty hard to maintain all the features of the product, but they don't know exactly, if you put it all in one bucket, which feature you need to prioritize in their development. That's why I start cutting and slicing and dicing it, because I say, look, if you take out some of the more advanced features, right, and you put it in another tier, then you go out and sell it. You don't develop it yet. Your sale, especially corporate, is going to take 8 months, 12 months. You show that as a vision, and they'll tell you, I'm going to pay for that, I'm not going to pay for that, and then you know what to develop. It's a much easier and way of developing, and it relieves some burden from the developer community.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of people underestimate completely. That's if that could be the biggest reason why you need to cut it in parts. The second reason is, of course, is upsell and is pre-framing your price. You know the trick. You go to you talked about a car. You go to the car dealer. First car you see every single time, the biggest car, the best
Yes.
car, the
Yes.
most expensive.
Yeah.
Pre-framing. I want that. I can't pay it.
All of
I go to
the
next
extras.
one.
It's got everything
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go to the next one, and then you say, I'm going to take the one that's a bit lower, and I'm going to take the rims of the expensive one. By the way, that is the reason, number one, why every Porsche you see, every Porsche from small to big, they all have the same rims. They all have the rims of the very expensive ones, because everybody wants the big, really expensive ones. They can't afford the car, so they'll take expensive rims. It's funny, huh? But just pay attention to that.
I'll look out for that. Yeah.
I know you will.
Yeah.
I know you want to replace that Jaguar by something good.
No,
Something from the continent, maybe, Mark.
the Jackie was gone. It's gone. It's history. Yeah. I'll show you next time you come over. I'll take you for a ride.
You'll show me an empty spot in the garage.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Look,
this
Michael,
is
it's
where
gone.
this is where he used to sit.
Moving.
It was
So
it was
hang on, what
killing
do you
me.
think about pricing?
Sorry, what I think about what?
Pricing.
Pricing. Well, when you were talking about the tiers, I was trying to remember there was an experiment done many years ago which actually relates exactly to that point that you made, which was about giving people choice meant that they more often made a decision. So what we mean by that is if you go back to somebody, I can't remember the exact experiment. I'll see if I can find it, but I've actually got a very good example from my own experience, is that if you go back and you give them the choice of one, you'll get less people buying than if you give them a choice of three. They may still buy the same option, and that was actually part of the experiment, but they feel that they've made a choice. Now,
But it's human behavior. Eh? If
Yeah.
I tell you what to do, you're not going to do it. You want to do something else.
yeah, my experience goes back to actually working in a shop when I was a student. I worked in a photographic shop, and we had a range of photographic enlargements. Typically, the photographers that used to come in there were amateur photographers, so we had a range. I was actually interested in a particular enlarger that was more expensive than their top end range, and I ordered it because I wanted to buy it. So we added it to that range and we put it in the lineup. When people came in to talk about the enlargers, I would take them from the very basic right the way up to this top end one. Very few people bought the very expensive one that I brought in.
But bought the one below.
A few did, but we sold
Yeah.
more enlargers because they had no need to go anywhere else because we'd given them a complete range. They
It's
felt,
pre-framing.
yeah.
It's pre-framing.
I was able to give them a lot of information from the basic to the top end, and I said, what works for you? What is it
Okay.
you're specifically after? And we sold a lot more. We really did.
Same effect, same concept, bit
Yeah,
different. You
is.
walk into a electro shop and you want to buy a television. They have 50 televisions. You can't decide. Good salesman, what will he do? He will take you and he will say, what are you looking for? Okay, I'm going to show you 3 models. Basic, very good, that everyone takes, and a very expensive one. It's
Yes.
good, but you might not need it. Everybody's going to buy the middle one. He decides what you buy. I have tested this on my kids, Mark. Real story. How do you get your kids to eat vegetables? You can scream at them. It's not going to work, right? So you have to give them choice. So what you do is you say, listen, you can eat chicken with carrots, or you can eat chicken with broccoli. And I tell you, it works for at least 3 weeks.
I think you're going to say chicken with Brussels sprouts. Because
No,
kids typically, they don't like Brussels sprouts, do they?
No, that's true. That's true. Actually, yeah, they don't.
That's
Thinking about it. Maybe if you fry them with sugar, it could work.
yeah, that's right. Anything with sugar on. Something else that came up a few times in the last couple of weeks. I've had lots and lots of meetings with all different types of companies. Been sitting down with a colleague, and we've been sitting in London, and we've just had meeting after meeting after meeting, which is been good, quite tiring, but really good. We've had a wide mixture of companies that we've been talking to, but quite interesting. There's been a few of the sort of lower ends, the startup businesses, and two of them, I was really quite surprised by both of them. Two of them are pre-revenue.
Pre-revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're talking.
It's funny that they talk to you, actually.
Yeah.
Looking at your business, because pre-revenue, I mean, you kind of first need to prove something maybe when you want to do exit strategies, or is that really, am I wrong?
Well, we are. We're not a typical M&A company. I actually say to people now that it's very difficult to put a tick box and say we're an M&A company. We're a software specialist company that does M&A, and I talk about us being a full cycle M&A company.
Of course.
Because we are interested in some of the really new startup businesses on occasion to a certain number, because if you get it right, they can be big very quickly. And I think we can help them to get big very quickly and more valuable, and help them grow in the right way. So I'm interested. But these two businesses, they hadn't sold at all. They'd put their money into development, nothing into marketing. They were both looking. They were both looking to get additional money to finish their product.
Of course.
But hadn't considered doing any marketing at all.
No. So they were actually really, really late because they forgot that it could take a year to sell stuff.
Well, the other thing is, I think go out and market it.
I rather have the opposite. Mark, I really rather have the opposite.
Yeah.
I heard a guy talking today with a company called Build-I. He was telling his story, and he had an idea. He went to several companies with the problem, and he actually showed them mock-ups. And then one of the companies, I'm interested. Then he actually found a team in the Ukraine who built pieces of like interfaces, not doing really, but kind of clickable stuff.
Yeah.
And then these guys said, okay, I'm ready to pay. And then he explained to them, yeah, it's not fully done. It's going to take a bit of months, but I mean, you get it at a very reduced rate. And he said, I built it from the bottom up, with everything has been funded by customers. And he says, now I actually really know where they want to spend their money, because if you just develop, you don't know if people are really, you can do it in research, but nobody really knows they want to put the money on the table. But I might be wrong, Mark. I might be a sales guy, but...
And do you know why this is? It goes back to one of my observations, is that a business will be built in the profile of the original founder. So if they are a technical guy, they love the technology, they're a programmer, developer in the past, they focus on developing. I think if you get a founder who was a real marketeer, he might start being more marketing led. But I think if you were to go out and pre-sell or pre-market that solution, and your market comes back and says, actually, we're not interested.
Actually, the guy that told the story, while you're saying this, his background is he used to run a sales strategy company.
There you go.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I think if I had to launch a product, I would do exactly the same.
Yeah.
Go sell it first and then fix the rest and hope things would go fine.
And do you know what the worst problem would be? You've got 20 customers chasing you to say when you're going to release it. Isn't that a great problem to have? Rather than spend hundreds of thousands developing a product that nobody wants, or developing it in a way that people aren't interested, or just running out of money because you sell it because you haven't got any money left for marketing. And you've used up all your family, friends, and your network.
So what did you do? You started shaking the tree and started hitting them with your charm? You
Yeah.
said, hey, if you have some money left, I have a Jaguar.
I had a colleague with me, and I think on one of these meetings to me, to be frank to somebody is actually to be a friend, and I came really frank response, and my colleague said, "No, it's all right. He's always like this." He just, but honestly, I think sometimes you have got to be cruel to be kind. You have got to shake them.
No.
Yeah, shake the tree a little bit. You have. You've got to make them think.
I've been more and more, as time progresses, I become more and more candid in a nice
Yes,
way.
yes. How you
But I
deliver
think
it
it's
is
my
important.
duty to tell you, but I have to say it in a nice way because otherwise the message is never going to resonate.
Yes, absolutely. Want to come and see me again, so perhaps I haven't upset them that much. Maybe they're coming back with a baseball bat this time. I don't know. But you got to be who you are, haven't you? You got to tell the truth. I think that's really important.
True.
Well, we've got to 30 minutes, which I'm quite relieved about actually, because I'm going to have an early day today because I want to shake this head cold. And you've been fainting on stage, so you need to go and have a rest.
I will actually.
Go and have an easy weekend. Go and do some exercise. Go do something different.
Yeah.
Have you got
my chickens?
You talk to chickens. Lucy, isn't it? Lucy the chicken who was in our earlier episode. Have you got a bike?
Yeah, I do some. I live on a mountain bike trail actually.
Yeah.
Just pass by.
Go
I
out and
watch
do
these
some
guys,
cycling.
and I think I should do it.
Great,
one day.
especially if you can get off road. It's a great way to get some exercise. So there were a few questions. I've had quite a few people.
We kind of treated them during the podcast of the questions.
Yeah, we have had some questions, but I'm getting some good feedback every week now. I'm getting people who are saying, "Yeah, we've been listening to your podcast," and yeah, it's quite interesting. We don't get many people saying, "Could you do this?" We do get a few questions or change it. Perhaps they just like it as it is. That's just sort of waffling on.
I would really encourage everybody to ask activation questions to Mark. Like, Mark, could you pretend to be a dog or stuff like that? I would really love you to do that. It would just enlighten the show a bit.
Yeah. Well, I thought this week you fell off your chair, so maybe I could outdo you, and I'll stand on my desk and fall off the desk. You know,
one day we'll have to
I'm very
do
competitive.
this live with a video so people actually see us talking. Right.
Actually, if you were to see my desk, I've got one of these desks. I don't know if you can hear this. I push a button. Can you hear that?
I have one of those too.
It raises.
And actually, stand-up desk. I mean, I bought one in the IKEA because they said and I love it because it keeps me my energy the whole day.
Yeah.
Around 3-4 o'clock, I need to sit down, and then I have one of those things that, you never rest, it moves. That's why I fell off the chair, because they are not really stable. That's the whole trick for your back. So, yeah, true.
Good to talk to you again today, Michael.
Thank you, Mark.
And we made it. Tough week. You've been fainting. I've got a head cold, but we did it anyway. Brilliant to speak to you. Good to speak to you.
Have a great weekend.
And you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.